It's a case involving a man named James Curly Prokopovitz. His wife went missing in 2013. He's now been charged with her murder. But there was another woman in Curly's life, and this woman's name was Kathy Friday. And exactly when their relationship started, to me, is still a little unclear. But we did have some evidence today, some testimony related to Kathy Friday and her relationship with the defendant, and it came from her daughter who testified today, Jennifer Friday. Significant testimony because prosecutors, as we've been saying from the beginning of this case, this is not an easy one. Victoria Prokopovitz's body has never been found, so you've got that huge hurdle in proving a case beyond a reasonable doubt. But you've got to gather as much evidence as possible. Every little piece is so valuable. And here now we get to potential motive and what exactly was going on in Curly's life, in his mind, and was there a reason for him to not want to be married anymore? Let's take a listen to some of the testimony from Jennifer Friday, once again the daughter of the man that the defendant, the daughter of the woman that the defendant was with after his wife died and perhaps before?
It was just so bizarre. The first trip to Georgia, she would carry on with what I presumed was him after the fact, and have conversations right there with me, sitting next to her. We were on the plane at one point prior to takeoff, and she said, "No, I haven't told her yet. I guess I'm afraid to." And I remember thinking, okay, she's gonna tell me what's going on, and it didn't happen. I will never understand why. Well, I don't know. I don't know why it was so difficult to just say, hey, I'm dating this guy. I asked her if she was concerned that his wife was missing, and she said that his wife has attempted suicide multiple times in the past, and that's what's believed to have happened. And I said, then, where is she then? And she said, well, there are quarries around the area, there's lots of vegetation, and hopefully a hunter will find her.
And not an easy day for her on the witness stand. I'm very emotional because her mother is no longer alive as well. She got caught up in all this for some allegations of lying to investigators, or lying to the court. Let's bring in Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter to kind of give us a little more context here and everything. And Jennifer Friday, an important witness, I think, for prosecutors, taking us into the world of Curly and his girlfriend after his wife goes missing. Was it clear, or where are we in terms of when that relationship started between Curly and Kathy Friday?
Yeah, Vinnie, it was a big afternoon inside the courtroom. It was a different feel, if you will, from the witnesses, from the emotion they were exhibiting, from the behavior of the defendant. But it's still unclear, I guess, what the prosecutor wants the jury to think, that this was a relationship before Victoria disappeared. But the evidence and testimony so far, Vinnie, has been that they connected after Victoria disappeared in 2013. Even the daughter, Jennifer Friday, today saying that the first phone call, because she went through her mother's cell phone records and her credit card statements to find out when this relationship heated up, if you will, and it was weeks after Victoria disappeared. So we don't have any direct specific evidence from the prosecution yet that it was before Victoria disappeared as a possible motive. So that's where we are, I guess, right now. The overall feel is this was something after, but he moved on, the testimony has shown, pretty quickly. It surprised his children. It surprised Jennifer Friday, so much so at one point, Vinnie, she talked about in detail how the relationship between her and her mother really deteriorated over the months because of the odd, quote, bizarre behavior her mother was exhibiting, trying to hide the secret relationship with Jim Prokopovitz. In fact, let's take a listen to her describing that before the jury.
Based upon that relationship and everything that ensued, Do you believe that that was a factor in the disintegration and loss of your mother to you?
100%.
I have no further questions.
All right, why don't we take our 15-minute break then, jurors?
So, Vinnie, this was a moment right before the mid-afternoon break. So the jury is seeing this happening as they're standing there to leave the courtroom. She can't control her emotions anymore, breaking down, thinking about how the relationship between her and her mother just almost became non-existent after October of 2013, after all of this behavior. She expressed how concerned she was for her mother because at first she didn't know who this new boyfriend was, but once she did some research and realized it was Jim Prokopovitz, whose wife had been missing for a couple of months, she was frightened for her mother and the odd behavior. She didn't know how to really take that.
Yeah, I could understand that. And, you know, it's so difficult, and I've never done it in a room, and that can be very intimidating, and I can understand how that in and of itself is difficult. But then you've got to get up there, talk about your mom who's no longer alive, and then you're diving into your relationship with your mother. And Jennifer Friday, extremely strong to be able to make it through all of that. How about Curly? Did he show any emotion today? I know it's tough, he's wearing the mask, but did we see anything from him today?
I did, more so than any day so far in the trial. This morning I noticed him kind of taking his mask down a little bit and rubbing his nose with the tissue, but this afternoon, Vinnie, he started taking his mask off and rubbing his entire face, like almost wiping tears away. He would wipe his eyes, and it correlated with Jennifer Friday's testimony about her mother, Kathy Friday, when she was talking about their relationship, like, you know, Jim and Kathy were like 13-year-olds in their first relationship. They were giddy, they were in love, she said, and he seemed emotional at that time. But it really showed during the testimony of his sister, the last witness of the day. He wiped his eyes several times as she testified, and even after she left the witness stand, he continued to show some emotion, more so than we've seen. We've seen him jot down notes, we've seen him pass notes to his attorneys and talk to his attorneys vigorously, shake his head in disagreement to some things that witnesses are saying, but not really in this way. And to me, it stood out because it had to do really with a lot of the testimony revolving around his former girlfriend, who's now dead and killed herself while incarcerated. So, and again, I have to say the jury's noticing this. When you're in the courtroom, it's a big courtroom, Vinnie, but they have a clear view over towards Jim Prokopovitz anytime they want to look over at him.
Now, let me tell you that I don't think that's going to help him one bit. I mean, getting emotional about his girlfriend, and I understand. I'm sure he loved her, and she probably loved him. You know, love is a funny thing. You know, you can't. You know, when does it happen? How does it happen? With whom? Right? All of that, but no tears. Has there been any emotion about in times where we're talking about his missing wife, about the wife that he had for so many years? Is there the one that he's on trial for killing? Has there been any emotion related to any testimony connected to her?
You know, I'm glad that you brought that up because I've been on the lookout from day one to see anything like that. And with the jury, especially this morning, hearing another recording of the defendant about a year after his wife disappeared, I was even listening for his voice to crack during this recording a year after his wife disappeared, and I didn't hear any of that in the recordings yesterday or today, any emotion. And with the testimony about the disappearance of his wife, there's no sort of similar reaction. Today was really the first day and afternoon, really. I see him wiping his eyes, grabbing a tissue, and it's, again, focused around Kathy Friday, not Victoria Prokopovitz.
Not good. I'm not saying it means anything necessarily, but the jury is noticing it. Now, another issue that came up was the tablecloth fight or tablecloth argument. Let's begin with the recording. Again, this is an interview with Prokopovitz talking about this alleged argument or discussion that he had with his missing wife about a tablecloth.
Do you remember having an argument with her in the truck on the way home?
No, no.
You remember having a discussion with her in the truck away home about a tablecloth? No. Because your first statement to the police was that she wanted to stop and buy a tablecloth, and you said you couldn't, that you had to go up and get your timesheet. That was your statement to the police. Remember anything about a tablecloth that day?
No, I don't remember seeing anything about a tablecloth. Maybe I did, but...
I know, it's a year ago.
Yes, it struck me that when I asked the question about an argument, he answered, no, 3 times. 3 denials was a big red flag for me.
All right, so there's this alleged argument about the tablecloth, and I guess apparently he didn't remember it, and this is right around the time that she disappears?
So this is about a year later, this recording that was played this morning. So it was April 2014. His wife goes missing April 2013. And again, the importance of this is on the heels of the jury hearing from Wesley Edges, the Victoria's son, his stepson, saying that, yes, Victoria and the defendant had this confrontation, a little bit of a spat over going to buy a tablecloth at the dollar store that night she disappeared. And here we hear this morning, very compelling recording from the defendant denying that, not once, but 3 times, according to this investigator, and said that was pretty much a red flag. It was alarming and an indication to him in his experience of someone being untruthful and trying to cover up.
All right, let's listen to Wes Edges testify about the tablecloth argument.
Wesley, with regards to this confrontation over this tablecloth, did your mom seem to be let that go when you were leaving the house, or did she still seem like she was arguing with Jim?
It seemed like she let it go before I left.
Okay, so she wasn't still angry or agitated when you left the house, correct?
She seemed like she was still upset, but not to the point where she was going to keep arguing about it.
And you didn't see any aggressive behavior from Jim towards your mom when you were leaving, correct?
No.
He didn't seem to have any issues about this tablecloth when you left, correct?
No.
All right, so how big of a fight? I mean, what is the jury going to walk away from saying, okay, there was this disagreement about a tablecloth, 0 to 10, what is the picture that's being painted in the courtroom about how big of a brouhaha this is?
You know, I'm going to give it a 5, Vinnie, because it depends on how well their notes are from Wesley's testimony. But it had to be important enough of a fight that Jim Prokopovitz wanted to deny it happened at all a year later. But again, Wesley on cross-examination was saying, oh, she was over it by the time he left to go to his friend's house for dinner. So it really wasn't that big of a deal. So I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 here. And again, who knows what the jury's actually thinking.
And again, the nature of this argument is that she wanted to go get a tablecloth and he didn't want to go get it because he has to drive her?
Exactly. He would have to be the one that drove her. He also controlled the money. He would have to give her the money. He'd pay for it, the tablecloth. So she really couldn't go do this without his help. Although the defense on cross, a lot of times they want to point out that Wesley had a car. Wesley could drive her here and there or take her, and his testimony on the witness stand was, yes, he would be willing to take her anywhere if she asked him to. So the defense always trying to come back on cross-examination, but this recording involved not only this contradiction, but a plethora of inconsistencies in his statements were revealed this morning for the jury. Each time the prosecution stopping that recording and pointing it out, making it clear for the jury.
Kind of like taking a highlighter and putting it there for the jury so they remember, okay, inconsistency. So where are we right now in terms of the trial? I mean, prosecutors are getting ready to wrap things up, but it's not 100% clear when he starts the relationship with Friday. It's not 100% clear where Victoria is. Is there any evidence of foul play that took place in the house?
There is not, Vinnie. Today we heard testimony from one of the deputies that helped execute a search warrant and told the jury about luminol lighting up in the master bedroom for blood stain or splatter. She really couldn't say. So there's a prosecutor wanting to infer maybe something happened of a crime scene in the master bedroom. But again, on cross-examination, the defense bringing up, isn't it true that Victoria had nosebleeds, frequent nosebleeds? And that could be an explanation for that. So there always seems to be some sort of follow-up or explanation by the defense on cross.
All right, I'll tell you about the nosebleeds, though, Chanley. The last time I heard that in the courtroom was back in 2001, I believe it was, and it was up in Dedham, Massachusetts. Dr. Dirk Greinader testified. He was on trial for the murder of his wife and testified that the morning that his wife was bludgeoned to death, that they both had simultaneous, spontaneous nosebleeds to try to explain some blood. This is a little different. Didn't work out well for Dr. Dirk. We'll see how it works out for Curly. All right, what's coming up tomorrow?
Well, tomorrow, like you said, we're expecting the prosecution to possibly wrap up its case. They were telling the judge they're planning to rest sometime on Wednesday, but because of that 2-day delay last week, Vinnie, they're just trying to catch up. So we will see, but we are on the lookout for the prosecution to possibly call this confidential informant, another one from the Brown County Jail, at some point. We're also going to hear from the defendant's daughter, Lisa Masti, to talk about her experience with her father. And we have other investigators to hear from as well, especially around this perjury count, the lie about Kathy Friday, how they met. Some more evidence to come on that as well.
All right, Chanley Painter live in Green Bay, Wisconsin, but is not outdoors, folks. We don't make her sit outside in Green Bay in February at night. So thank you so much, Chanley. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vinnie.